Hello, Cat fans. I'm back for another game recap. Plus, we're going to talk about Johnny Manziel and the Montreal experiment. Did not do a video last week. Was a little too busy to get that done. And I didn't have a lot to say that other people weren't saying. I mean, the Cats absolutely rolled over the Alouettes. Johnny Manziel did not look good. And then there was a lot of debate about what that meant for the future of Johnny Manziel and where the projections are. And we're going to talk about that because I've had a somewhat unpopular opinion that Johnny Manziel is not a player that can particularly live up to the expectations some people have for him in the CFL. And I think we saw a little bit more than that against Ottawa this week, where he went 16 to 26 for 168 yards. Didn't really stretch the field a lot. Did hit a lot of receivers, though. Had a decent completion rating, so it's not a complete bust game. But he's a guy who is very reliant on making plays after things have broken down, and he's not really able to read the game off of the snap. And I said this about him in Cleveland as well, and even in college, is that in college you get away from this. Like everyone wants to go with the Doug Flutie comparison, but what about the comparisons to Eric Crouch? What about the comparisons to Troy Smith? What about the comparisons to Vince Young? All these quarterbacks who washed out of the NFL and the CFL, and we're kind of ignoring them. We're really kind of ignoring that very much there's a lot of similarities there with Johnny Manziel. That, you know, we're looking at the best case scenario, the Doug Flutie, and we're not really taking into account all the other possibilities. And I think there's a tremendous amount of chances that is going to happen exactly like that. Anyways, enough on Johnny Manziel. I will finish off with some good side. If he's determined to really make a football career work, and he's willing to learn, and he's willing to give Montreal time to sort their stuff out, we might see some good numbers from Johnny Manziel. But he was not the magic bullet in Hamilton. He's not the magic bullet in Montreal. We need to stop thinking that was the case. The problems in Hamilton, again this week, are largely to do with, I think, a bad structured system right now. I have immense respect for June Jones, and I think as a motivator and as an overall football coach, there's a lot there. I think he's a great assessor of talent as well. But I think in a way he has a certain type of talent that he looks at and a lack of appreciation for some other areas. Let's look at the offensive line situation in Hamilton right now. By the way, the Ticats, of course, this week losing to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers by a count of 29-23, getting the ball late in the game, chance to possibly go down the field and score a touchdown, put themselves in front. Could not do it. Played actually a pretty good fourth quarter up until that point, though. But I think that you're really looking at it at a problem here of just priority of coaching. And what I mean by that is, if we look at Hamilton's left tackle situation right now, they traded away Tony Washington to the Montreal Alouettes in the Johnny Manziel deal. I said at the time I didn't like it. A lot of people told me to relax. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Tony Washington's not that good of a player. Problem is that his replacement right now is a guy by the name of Avery Jordan. Apparently he's the brother of DeAndre Jordan of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team. Longtime LA Clipper for you basketball fans. And the problem is he's, number one, a little bit undersized. He had been trying to get a role as a blocking tight end in the NFL. Number two, he's just not very good. He's now had 3 games to start. He started against Ottawa, Montreal, and against Winnipeg. In all of those, he's been victimized heavily without even really trying to go after him with blitzes. He's just getting beat up straight up, one-on-one with defensive ends, and also not reading switch moves very well between him and left guard Brandon Revenberg. So that's a bit of a problem. It's a massive problem because that's a blindside pressure coming on Jeremiah Masoli, and a lot of people are blaming Jeremiah Masoli for this loss, and like every loss, frankly, that we blame on Jeremiah Masoli. The problem with that is that, honestly, the man is under a great deal of pressure. And I'm not really a Masoli apologist because I don't believe Jeremiah Masoli is an elite quarterback. I believe he's a competent starter, but I don't believe he's in the Mike Riley, Bo Levi Mitchell, Ricky Ray, Anthony Calvillo, Damon Allen class of quarterback. I believe he's more like a Kerwin Bell, better than Kerwin Bell, but somewhere in that general area of guys who stuck around the league for a long time as starters, but weren't really that elite class of quarterback. And that's kind of the thing. That's where I see him. And that's enough for us to make the playoffs, and it's enough for us to play better than we currently are. Because I feel, again, you have a problem with the offensive line, and I think you again have a lot of problems with play calling. I sometimes legitimately am lost as to what the Hamilton Tiger Cats are doing offensively. There was one particular play in the fourth quarter this week where they're at 2nd and long, very little time left on the clock, and they hand it off to Alex Green, who does a good job. I think he gets about 8 yards. But what is that play call? What are you doing? And then you have earlier in that same drive, a very deep pass to Brandon Banks that doesn't really pay off. You have the moves that we made, again, going back to the Manziel trade. We got Chris Williams, Jamal Westerman, and 2 draft picks. And they're trying to big up it. They're trying to bring back the nostalgic days of Chris Williams in Hamilton and in Ottawa. They're trying to bring back the idea of Jamal Westerman as an elite pass rusher. It's just not true. All you've done with Chris Williams is you've added another sub-6-foot-tall receiver to a group of very small receivers. Him, Jalen Saunders, Brandon Banks, Luke Tasker, Mike Jones, all under 6 feet tall. That's your 5 starting receivers, unless Terrence Tolliver replaces one, and he's not that tall. It gives you more of what you already had. Like, they're trying to make a big deal about, okay, we got Brandon Banks and Chris Williams. How do you stop them both? You do it the same way you stop Brandon Banks. Like, it's literally the same thing. We don't have 2 questions to answer. We have one. We have one. Not that we can answer both necessarily, and I think that you'll get there. But the great mystery of how to stop Chris Williams and Brandon Banks is pretty damn similar. There's not a lot of variety there. Then you also have the problem again with that offensive line. You have the weird disappearance of the run game at times in the game where they don't do it. Now, this week, I thought they did an admirable job with the run game. In fairness, I think despite its struggles early, they actually stuck with it. Alex Green got 16 carries for 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's some pretty decent carry numbers. Jeremiah Masoli rushing 7 times for 80 yards. This is not the Ken Austin era where we had some significant problems with just running the ball. But there were points in the game where it disappeared. And then there were points in the game where it was used very oddly. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I've been saying I don't really like Glanville's strategy. I don't really like his playbook. I don't really like how he's doing it, but it is working. But there is some bad tackling going on with the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now that are allowing some just nasty plays. Like there was a play there to, it's the young Canadian kid that Winnipeg's got, the rookie, number 81, I want to say Peterman or something like that. Takes a catch 1 yard up the field on a 2nd and 10 where we need a stop to just force them to punt. And he goes for 12 yards because there's 3 missed tackles. And it's that's not even an elusive player. That is not good. There's definitely some problems there. And again, I harp on this, the fact that what did Westerman fix? Much like what did Chris Williams fix about our offense, what did Westerman fix on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, he's replacing Justin Capicati and gives us a pretty good guy to replace him with. Sure, I mean, it's a good rotation there. It takes the weight off of Connor McGraw to try to become that next Canadian defensive end, and McGraw is currently hurt, so that even looks better. But Westerman taking some just bad, undisciplined penalties. Both weeks he's been in the lineup in a major way. Actually, all 3 weeks he's been in the lineup in a major way. That's problematic. He's not generating anything statistically. I'm gonna pull up Jamal Westerman's stats here. Since joining the Hamilton Tiger Cats, whereas Jamal Westerman, he had 2 tackles against Winnipeg. Let's see your game log. So against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 2 tackles, no sacks. 1 tackle against Montreal, 3 tackles against Montreal. So he's had 6 tackles in the games. He's had 3 sacks all season. And again, looking at his defensive numbers over the last couple of years, keep in mind that we're talking to a guy who, had a great 2015, amazing 17 sacks, great job, big pat on the back, but that dropped to 8 the following season, dropped to 7 the following season. There's a reason he's not in Winnipeg anymore. There's a reason that Montreal got him, and he was having a pretty decent season in Montreal. 5 games played, 19 tackles, 3 sacks, looking like he had recovered a little bit of what he had. But he's not a guy who's even going to take that role on the defensive end. So basically what we got here is a starting receiver who's a lot of the same stuff, a defensive end who's not even really playing, and we gave him a starter. It still feels just bad. And the starter, giving up Tony Washington, I think, is a huge deal. It's not just that we got a next guy up philosophy, we'll be able to replace him. You really haven't. Avery Jordan was your plan. And Avery Jordan had joined the practice roster after preseason. We hadn't seen him take an actual down of football, and it is proving to be a great mistake. And I said June Jones is a great assessor of talent. He missed the ball on this one. It's not very good. So I'm a little bit worried about how the coaching staff has been handled. I'm keen to let it ride this season. This is not me calling for June Jones's head or a firing of the head coach at this point. I think that would be premature and not required. But I think that there's a lot, and I think there probably are a lot of people calling for his head. I heard a lot of that on the fifth quarter with Rick Zamperin. Because, frankly, I find Hamilton Tiger Cat fans, and sports fans in general, we have like this weird inability to see all the sides of things. And I think, you can see the good in Jeremiah Masoli and the bad. And there are some people that are only seeing the good, and there's some people that are only seeing the bad. And they're calling for his head, and they want someone else in there. Dane Evans is not the guy to replace Jeremiah Masoli at this point. And there's no one out there. There's no backup quarterback that I would feel comfortable saying should replace him. Maybe like Stivern from Winnipeg. I actually think that guy's got a lot of potential talent. But realistically, he's also got some significant shortcomings as well right now that has to work out in a lot of development. So he would be a long-term plan as well. There's not a magic fix here, guys. It wasn't Manziel, and it's not Evans, and it's not coming from anywhere else. So you're stuck with Masoli, so just deal with that part of this. He is the starting quarterback, I think, for the rest of the season, without a doubt. And I think June Jones is the head coach for the rest of the season, without a doubt. And I think that's how it should be. I think there's a lot of potential mileage out of that group. We're only 3-5. It's not that bad. I didn't like the fact that we lost to Ottawa in a game that we definitely could have won. That I thought the members of the team played really well, and there were some key letdowns that denied us the victory there. So those are 2 points that we should have had that are left on the ground. But the Eastern Conference is bad. We still have a playoff team, realistically speaking, because I don't think Toronto's going to be there for the long run. I don't think Montreal is going to be there for the long run, unless Manziel turns into an absolute beast. Maybe Bethel Thompson, the new quarterback for Toronto, can turn into something, and that'll put the pressure on us. But right now, outside of probably not, we're probably hosting an East semifinal against. I'm going to say Saskatchewan because I don't have a lot of faith in BC. I think Winnipeg and the two Albertan teams are the actual West playoff teams. So there's that. In terms of really good games, Brandon Banks, 6 catches for 106 yards, touchdown. He had a big night. Jalen Saunders went down with injury. That's very concerning. Who steps up to replace him? It'll be probably Terrence Tolliver. We spread the ball around reasonably well. Terrence Tolliver had 3 catches for Chris Williams. Not a lot of Luke Tasker, though. Need a little bit more Luke Tasker. 1 catch for 18 yards is not a Luke Tasker stat line that I'm really comfortable on. Our defense against the run has been continuously weak. We had a pretty big game from Simone Lawrence, who came up with 8 tackles and a fumble recovery, but not a lot of pressure again on the quarterback. Two sacks from Don Unamba and Mario Cooper. Not getting a lot of pressure off of those ends. Again, that's a problem. And I guess that supports the idea of bringing in Westerman to try to shake things up, but it hasn't really worked in that regard, if that was the plan. Congratulations to Mike Daly on his baby. That being said, he did not play well, but perhaps that's understandable, and we'll keep an eye on and see how he does next game and tries to deliver. Again, we need to resolve this whole left tackle issue. We need to figure out how to get more pressure on the quarterback, and I think if those 2 things can come around, this team becomes a lot better, just with those 2 things. Also, what are we doing with the special teams? We got Brandon Banks and Chris Williams. We're not letting them return the ball. We're having Mercer Timmis and Sean Thomas early to do it. I'm greatly confused. We're a little banged up right now, but nothing too bad. Pretty healthy team right now. Jalen Saunders is the big concern. Hopefully he gets a speedy recovery and is back in the lineup because he's had a lights-out season. Played fantastically pretty much from start to finish. Had a big catch here to open up the game before leaving with the injury. So, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Hamilton is going on to the bye week this week, so we'll have some time to sort it out. Maybe get that left tackle spot very much sorted out. That's, I think, the high priority right now. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are next in action in Week 11 of the season, where they will be hosting the Edmonton Eskimos on Thursday, October 23rd at 7:30 Eastern Time. That should be a big game. Edmonton is the second best team in the league, in my opinion. We do own a win over Edmonton earlier this season, way back in week 2. I know that was back when we had a lot of hope for the season. We played Calgary tough, and then we had beaten Edmonton. So hopefully we can do something more there and handle our business, pick up a win. That would be huge. We're not at Labor Day yet. There's still plenty of time to go. And the East is bad, so we're alive. But with that left tackle situation has to be sorted out pronto. And we really need to work out some of the play calling on offense and just a way to get some pressure on defense. And again, I think that's the Jerry Glanville problem, where I don't like what he's doing with his defense. If it works, it works. But I don't think it will. And at times this season it has come up very short. So that's what I got for this week. It's a fantastic ride this season. I must say that, if nothing else. Very unpredictable, very exciting, just not necessarily with the consistent results we would like. So that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you not next week, but 2 weeks from now.